Welcome to the podcast where we discuss all matters financial planning and investing. This content contains general information only and may not be relevant to everyone. Please contact our office to make sure and determine if this is relevant for you. Welcome to the podcast. I'm David Loughnan, and today we're talking about New Year, New Plan, and I'm joined with your planner, Col Eccles. How are you, Col?
Good, thanks, Dave. How are you?
Very well. Financial year is starting and the confusion around that. What do you find people are looking for? Or
I think it obviously depends. A financial plan is something that's personalised, so it depends on the person and their, I suppose, stage of life. But general themes are, I think everybody wants money to be able to do stuff, whether it's holidays, stop work, etc. So a general theme is making steps to, or putting plans in place to be able to give them that the resources to do what they want to do and put a plan in place. What's the old saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah, 100%. What I find is there's a lot of people, it gets to the New Year's, a lot of people get a bit more energy about them and, all right, I want this year to be different, or else we go through life, 30 years still the same,
Yeah,
40 years, or when it comes to finance, probably specifically, if you don't take the right actions, you get in trouble. What I find a lot as well is people, they don't get enough progress in their life, in their finances to really keep encouraging them to move forward. And without planning, you can have some luck here and there, and people can do disjointed things. So they might have bought something, some shares or a property or a business or whatever it may be. But in an overall scheme, to replace incomes these days, it's a huge amount of money we actually need to build up.
That's right. I think it's that, just with anything, so we go, okay, we want to stop working, so we need to replace our income, whether it be 100, 200,000, whatever it is, that's a big number. And so it seems too far off. So if you put a plan in place and you chip away at it over time, it's like anything. If you make smaller goals and as you achieve them, like you said, you become energized and you keep with it. If you put a big goal in front of you that's almost not achievable, then you never start working towards that.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset. It doesn't matter whether you go to the gym and you try to look after yourself physically. It's like getting into those patterns. What I find a lot of clients that we have is this really confused, but they don't know where to start. All I hear is that there's a lot of problems. Everyone hates tax, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone thinks we're paying too much. Everyone would like to earn more, have more things, have more holidays and all that sort of stuff. But really, most people haven't sat down and identified, really specifically what they want, because they don't know how to get there. Probably scared around what is possible, what's not possible. And when I talk to how many phone calls I have a week to different people, even potential new clients and so forth, about what is possible for them. Like, I know with hundreds of different cases, I can look at anyone's finances and go, this guy could get that, or this girl could get this, but they don't actually know where they're coming from. So I think it's very scary, and that's why people don't start, because there has been a big trust issue out in there. There's so many things online. Everyone's an expert in everything. And a lot of people don't know where to actually go. The where to start, why it's important. I just think without, like, even myself coming into this year, I always plan for different things. I want progress, and it takes a lot of effort and work and change.
Definitely.
Yeah, that change bit. So someone will look at me potentially sometimes and say, you're a bit lucky. I'll say, yeah, you work 12 hours a day or 15 hours a day with me and do that for 30 years and see how you go. You do create your own luck. So getting on to some goals, what are some main goals people are after, do you think?
Like I said, there's a general theme depending on the individual and the stage of life. It's a general theme. A younger person might be planning for short-term things, like whether it's deposit on a home or having a baby or something like that. And older people may be working towards retirement. But at the end of the day, I think the common theme is building assets or financial resource, to be able to allow you to, whether it be afford those things that you're looking for, or retiring, so replacing your income with income from your own assets. But that's the general thing. And then in doing that, it's around, you mentioned tax before. Tax, maybe the goal's not to pay more tax. Well, that's probably a good thing, because it probably means earning more or making money. Yeah. But the idea is trying to not pay more than you have to. And then, making use of spare. And I think for a lot of what we come across is trying to get on top of your cash flow, like trying to find those money leaks to allow you to, or find out where what you have capacity to actually put towards savings, etc. And like you said before, sometimes when you look at someone's plan and you put things together, and it's like it takes like an older person, I want to retire when I'm X date. It's like, if you've done these things, you could actually bring that forward by 5 years.
I think all those progress and knowing some common ones, like people want more holidays. So even just getting in a plan, and when you do your cash flow, and the thing you mentioned before, what I find when I started financial planning over 10 years ago, I thought everyone was okay with cash flow, and they understood what their expenses were. Like, it's just totally the opposite.
Yeah.
I ask anyone, they just go blank.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, or no indication, or some at best, they might be able to tell me what their total monthly expense is on average. But once you actually really dive into that and control your cash flow, because it actually controls everything you do. A lot of people have a goal around, I would really love to know what's coming in and what's going out. So that the way I look at it is so that we actually can help them achieve something, because you can't start paying off debt or putting money into investments or going on more holidays if you don't have any cash flows. So.
But the big thing on that as well is so many times people on really good incomes, and they ask them what the expense are. They go, I think it's around this. And you look at, they tell you how much they've got in the bank, and it's nowhere near what it should be if those are the expenses, which means they're not really on top of their spending. You're not saying live like a pauper and put squirrel every cent away.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you've got to have money to do the stuff you want, but without wasting.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, we're going to waste a lot of money, full stop in life, but we've got to live our life. We're here to experience. So I think when I tipped over the 50 mark right now, I was a bit more lenient on myself on different areas and so forth. And it's like we're only here once, so really use our money wisely. And that probably comes into a lot of what we do comes around that retirement planning over sort of 15, 20 years. And some people are close to that. A lot of people don't realize what is achievable, and what you touched on before as well. A lot of people can retire earlier, and retire once you've got enough money. That's not an age thing. You could be retired at 25. You could be retired at 45. It just comes down to cash flow. And then you could be doing things maybe more that you would enjoy. Some people enjoy what they do. Some people don't. But I think having a longer term vision around being able to retire on your terms, whether that's 55, 60, or there's a lot of people that want to work forever, it's really identifying. I haven't heard anyone come to me and say, Dave, once I retire, I will live on 80% of my wage or 50% of my wage or something like that. They generally, whatever they're spending, once you get to retirement, expenses are lower. So generally kids are off your hands to a degree, and debt's gone and all those sorts of things. So you do need less, but your spend amount will still, no one wants to actually spend less on discretionary spending that they're doing themselves.
And that's the key to setting the goals and understanding cash flows, because when a lot of people talk about, they don't really know what they'll need in retirement. So you need to actually try and work with them and dig down to find out what is it that they spend, to be able to, for them to work out, it's like, what's it putting the horse before the cart? Everything is flying. Well, what is it that you spend? So to allow you to understand what you're going to need in retirement, and then start planning towards that goal.
It's a bloody scary thing too, because you look at the ATO come out with stuff, or the figures that come out saying what's a comfortable retirement, what you need, adding the age pension in there. Most people we deal with are spending more than that.
That's right. Yeah.
Way more than that, not a little bit more than that. So if they actually go off those figures, once they get down the track, they'll be in real trouble. So I think really identifying what it does cost you to live, and then reasonably what is in your capability to get there. A lot of people can get there. I always say 5 years is a really short period of time, even 10 years, but 15 years, over a 15-year period, you can change everything and know how to use, especially in retirement planning. You might have investment properties, you might have a business, you might have a big super, depending on how all those things are going to work with your age, with age pension and all those sorts of things. But from a basic goal, I think everyone wants to continue living their life, if not better, with good health, and really not run out of money. That's what I find. So, And then you've got things like other investments, like people are always talking. What do you think a lot of people want in other investments?
Super is obviously in Australia, that's the I suppose the cornerstone of your investment. A lot of people like property, because there's a lot of information out there about property. A lot of people selling investment strategies around property. But your main ones are obviously share market investments or managed investments, property, and super. I don't really think of as an investment. It's just like a vehicle, a tax vehicle, tax structure. But within that, it's shares, the basics around spreading your risk around shares, property, whether it be in direct investment property or investing through a structure that's exposed to commercial properties, whatever it may be, and then your bonds and your fixed interest investments. But most, obviously we all understand that we need to spread the risk. We can't have all the other eggs in one basket. Yeah,
I find with investments as well, it's one of those vehicles that, especially if people want to retire earlier, they need access to money. That's the biggest thing. If your income stopped, you need access to money. That's where I find a share market sort of strategy could work, or if you've got properties or investment properties can work. A lot of people are downsizing, so they're equity rich and cash flow poor. A lot of those things can happen down the track as well. There's so much information. If you're a 20-something year old, what you should be doing investment wise and looking at all those is different to something mid-30s, a bit late. And then when you're getting to late 40s or early 50, it's totally different again. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, it's going into different types of investments. Once you actually really identify where you're trying to get to, that can really help getting your own home and investment properties and all that. There's multiple different ways and a lot of information out there which way to go. And a lot of people are petrified of that as well. So there's a lot of people who don't want to go down that track. And it's this crazy world we live in with investments. Everyone's an expert.
I think there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of information out there. So it becomes almost that inertia where people have a bit of knowledge about a lot of things and they don't really understand which one is the best or which one they should do, and they end up doing nothing. And like you said before, investment is such a broad area and it depends on the person's financial situation, their stage of life, what is perhaps the most optimal for them to do. Well, I mentioned super, obviously there's limits around what we can have in super. So a really wealthy person may be limited to what they can get into super. And then you said someone who's wants to retire at 50, they can't get the hands of the super for 10 years, whatever. So yeah, it's such a broad area and it's really individualized.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky. And one of the big ones that really hold a lot of people back right through their life is debt. What I find is there's no definitely planned around debt. I find a lot of people in Australia have lifestyle creep. Which means that as they earn a little bit more or they get a little bit more equity, they generally borrow a bit more and take the bigger trip, get the bigger car, do all those things that there's actually no plan to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So they feel like it's part of life, where it's having a plan to actually not have debt. Imagine most people who have got home loans and so forth, they're paying anything from 30 to 100,000 per annum in repayments if that wasn't there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If you actually own that and those repayments weren't there, how much easier you'd be able to allocate that money somewhere else.
That's right,
You know, I think what I find, a debt plan over 7 years, 10 years, a debt plan is not 30 years.
That's right.
To take out your first home loan and just, you know what, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And there's good, bad, and bad debt. It's like when people invest into the share market, a lot of the times they have home loans and they don't know different strategies that they should be using to probably come into one of the goals a lot of people has is to pay less tax.
Yeah, that's right.
How many phone calls do we get about that?
I know. Most everyone is, I want to pay less tax.
So if you're not paying any tax, obviously you're
That's
not
a bad
making
sign.
You're not making any money. Even through businesses, there's really some cool strategies that business owners can use to limit tax and also build their wealth at the same time, which it's just so much more opportunity. Where when you're on wages, unfortunately, there's no room. It's very limited. And that's where if you're earning a couple $100,000 or 250 grand, there's a fair bit going in the super. There's not much more that you actually can do to reduce that down.
Yeah.
And then you've got investments that you could borrow into investment property for argument's sake, and you're negative gearing, which means you're losing some money to hopefully gain some gain down the track, which has its ups and downs as well. So there's all sorts of things there. So one of the things I think when it comes to that, so investing in property or the share market, I think most people are comfortable-ish putting money into super. It comes down to their risk tolerance.
Yeah, that's right. And again, people don't understand that. And it's another thing as well is people of our clients where they've got what they want in terms of income, their assets will more than if they just stuck the money in the bank, that would give them that income. And then you ask yourself, well, why would you take more risk than you need to? So it's understanding your situation, and someone who's got bigger goals, who perhaps don't have financial, they may have to take a bit more risk to get them where they want. So understanding what your risk tolerance is, because again, it just depends on how they may need to either adjust their goals or adjust their risk tolerance if they need to get to a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot of the noise out there and different things is borrowing to invest, which most people are definitely not comfortable with the losses, you know, which can happen and have happened and will happen in the future. But obviously there's gains as well. Understanding when someone comes to me and says, Dave, I want to borrow $1 million and put it into the share market. I'm like, have you ever done that before?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, you have it, it could drop down really quickly and you could be negative. And obviously I've experienced that with clients and I understand how it works. So it's, you know what, that has its issues. And then people are pretty comfortable borrowing money to go into property, which has its ups and downs, but it all had, at the end of the day, if things go bad in either markets, you've got to be able to hold through those times. So when it comes down to it, and that's why a very small percentage of people actually invest. Yeah. It's minute how many people do anything when it comes to investing, from the confusion, the risk, they're not knowing the outcome because it's unknown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All we can actually control is us.
That's right.
We can't control the investments. Like, I got a call yesterday saying, where's the share market going? I said, it's going up or down.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. I don't know exactly where it's going. However, over time, it's increased. We might be high in the markets right now, but that might keep going. There's no magic wand, and Donald Trump's just come in and anything can happen, right?
But I think that's the thing with, obviously that's the big, the fear of the unknown is a big thing. But I suppose that's where those goals, understanding what your needs are, because if you're planning for something in the next 12 months to 12 to 24 months, you're not going to stick the money in the share market. So it's understanding where your money's sitting at, planning, having buckets for short, medium, longer term goals. And if it's something long term, like if you're 15 years away from retirement, is having the understanding that yes, the market will go up and down, but over that 15 years, and like we educate our clients, during those downturns, if you keep putting money in, it's like almost everything's on sale on the share market.
You're buying cheap.
And just, you're getting, so it's getting the understandings, but that education as well. And I think once people get comfortable, get understanding and get comfortable with it, and I suppose our role is to help educate them and hold their hand, and that they then feel better riding those ups and downs.
Yeah, definitely. I always think it's really important to, once you've actually put the plans in place, you know what you want, you've gone through all the strategies, which is for another chat, there's a million strategies out there. It's one thing I find is someone will put a plan in place initially, but then without implementation, it's just a wish.
Yeah.
If they decide to put more money off their home loan or money into their super or money into investments, it's making sure that they actually do it.
Yeah.
And without the implementation, nothing changes.
No.
Nothing happens. And it's one of the hardest things. And I think it's probably the most important thing we do as financial planners is make sure it's implemented. So someone's actually paid for a service.
Yeah.
Generally, they're more inclined to do it.
Do
you know what I mean? So it's making sure it gets implemented, make sure the strategies happen long term. And when the markets go down or something goes down, it's actually just staying in. The worst thing I hear at times is when someone says to me, I'll just see what happens. And then I'll decide to react to that. So what you're saying to me is you want the market to go up, and then once it goes up, you'll get comfortable and put money at the wrong time.
You do the opposite,
So what I find is having the plan, getting all the strategies implemented. Generally, when we create a financial plan, how many strategies do you find was implementing?
Probably on average, you're at 10 to 12. And that's a broad range around, like we mentioned before, it's around managing debts, making the most of their superannuation, getting money into super, investments, shorter term planning, long term planning. So generally, there's about 10 to 12 strategies we are covering off on.
Yeah, there's a lot goes into it. When we talk, even when we go over things, a lot of people are I didn't know it was this in depth.
Yeah.
The advice documents, they've got the goals, but then it goes into all the strategies, the risks, all that. I think the main section of all that is the projections. So if I do A and B, this is what I get. If you could pay off your debt in 7 years or 10 years, you're probably more inclined to do it if you could see that. I'm a very visual person, or if the super is going to be at $2 million or whatever, I'm more inclined to do that. So that will give me a really good income in retirement. It's more about just seeing, and it's basically taking little steps to start achieving those things. And how many people know how to actually judge investments?
Yeah, that's right. But the important bit of the projections, well, is that's like if you're putting the planning today, that's your yardstick. I suppose each year when you come back, you talked about setting the plan, implementing and reviewing it. So every 12 months is how were we tracking? If we were tracking towards paying our debt off in 7 years, and each year this is where we thought we were going to be. He's like, after year one, how did we go? And then that's, like I said before, it's when you have those small wins. So if you're paying off for $500,000 mortgage, that's a big number. But you say, if we're going to pay off $50,000 in year one, and we've got that, you feel good about yourself, you keep going because you've achieved. So it's breaking things down into little things, and use the analogy of getting fit or going to the gym. It all comes back to it's just sticking to things, having smaller goals, achieving those. And as you start to pick them off, you get more energized and motivated, and then you just keep going with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll call it stretching the gap. So what you're doing is pulling down your debts and then adding to your investments.
Yeah.
Whether that's super, the share market investments, generally just say if you've got a house, your property is generally going up in value. So all of a sudden you become an accidental millionaire over time. And a lot of people can do that. It's not generally overnight, but over time, like $1 million isn't that much these days. It's in making sure those things happen, or all the small things happen, people can get really cool results. So in summary, just on our first episode going into starting a plan, what would you summarize what you're thinking at the moment?
I think it's getting started. That's the first thing, is actually even if you don't know what it is that you want, you just know in general you want to be in a better position, is taking that first step and you're speaking to an advisor or even doing some of your own research. And then, like I said, putting that plan in place, because when people start out, they're not necessarily going to know what their goals are. Like you said before, they don't walk in and go, I want this, that, and the other. It's just a general idea that they have that they don't, and they may think what they want is not achievable. So it's first thing is to actually do something. Again, go back to the getting fit one is like, get at the couch, do something, take the first step. That's the most important.
I think one of the things, like I speak to people most days, potential new clients, and I always ask them, I say, what made you reach out today? You know, why did you make the decision? And it's really hard for most people to make that decision, to call someone to talk about their finances, because it's not something you talk about with your friends. Generally, you don't go, oh, what are you doing here or there? The younger generation might be, but definitely the older generation aren't doing that. So it's just breaking that ice and figuring out what's possible and getting into actually just working out what that person wants, because they've never actually sat down and thought about it. Really, what do they want? Because they don't know what the potential is. So a lot of the times, a lot of people should be dreaming for more because they can have it, but they haven't planned for it. So it's not that scary once I actually talk to them and say, okay, so this is what you want, A, B, C, D, and whatever it may be. And they're like, yeah, there's in most people's financial situations, there's way more opportunities than what they're doing right now. The worst thing you can actually do is do nothing.
That's right.
But if you've got some help, and generally these days, if you're not progressing, there's nothing worse than that feeling. And what I find is creating the surplus, getting it invested and compounding, doing the right thing compounds over time. So it's just breaking the ice of creating a new plan. That's first decision. Say, you know what? I want a plan.
Do something.
Number two is really you need some help. If you're not an expert in the finance space, it is crazy difficult to understand all the strategies. And you know that one of the things is figuring out what strategy is right for you. And the reason sort of a financial advisors can help you a lot more, they've generally dealt with hundreds of cases. So the bloody answer is obvious. Generally, what are the options? So if you're by yourself, I find that's incredibly difficult to work out. And then the confidence, because once they've got a plan, they're still frightened to a degree, right? So they're really going on the faith that that's going to work, and then making sure that we can help them implement that plan so they're not left by themselves. And then they've got someone to rely on just to make one of the most important things over their lives is money. They're either really scared of it or they're doing okay with it. And generally, a lot of people are petrified of where they are if they're going to run out of money or don't have enough money or definitely not progressing to where they should be. So, and part of this podcast is really just educating people. We're going to get more in detail in different topics and so forth. But anyone who's watching this, if you want to reach out, feel free to give us a call. There's always a free consult. Give us and share the podcast. And I look forward to sharing some more insights next time. And thanks for your time, Col.
Thanks, Dave. Looking forward to the next one.
Cheers.